Hi, I'm Pamela, and welcome to Greenstick Cottage, where I read and listen to books and enjoy other forms of entertainment as much as I can whenever the cats allow me to. I have a cat right here in my lap right now, one of them. This is Jilly. She's about 5 years old, and she is the mama cat to Rosie, Junie, and Mary. And she has kind of adopted Misty, who showed up. Misty was dumped in the desert and rescued and brought into my home, and she's been here safely ever since. And so she's kind of like Jilly's fourth daughter. So all the cats are females here. And since I have her here, I'm going to go ahead and show I'm going to go out of order, and I'm going to show what I did for drawing since my last video. She's getting antsy, but I wanted to show her next too, so I'll have to tell a story about this. Well, maybe she'll settle down for a minute. And I was watching a video by Struthless, or the channel name is Struthless, and he was talking about his mentor telling him about art and how he should draw the same thing every day until he's happy with it, until he's satisfied with it. And I thought, well, maybe that's what I should do, because, you know, he did very well with his. And it was kind of a funny story because he decided to draw, I'm not sure what the actual name of the bird is, but they call them bin chickens there. And he got better and better at it, at drawing that bird. And I guess they're called that because they raid the trash all the time. So, the trash bins. And so, and then eventually he started adding, speech bubbles and creating comics with this bin chicken in there. So I thought, well, let's see, what animal would I like to draw? And so I have cats. So I decided to try drawing a cat, and it was Jilly that I tried to draw first because she was nearby at the time. Look at her, she's so not into this. Look at her face. She's just like, why are you doing this to me? But so I decided to draw a cat for my drawing, portion of my brain stack. And there she is. That's Jilly. That's my rendition. I started with the eyes. I wanted to get her yellow eyes. She has real pretty yellow, kind of yellow, a little bit greenish eyes. So I tried doing that. I think I got her markings pretty well, except that, I didn't have a bunch of different shades of orange. And so, anyway, I'm hoping that someday this will be, like, I'll perfect my cat drawing, and I'll be able to look back at this and see, the progress I've made along the way. And speaking of the drawing, I'm still real happy with my holographic unicorn pencil box, and it's purple, my favorite color. And in my decluttering efforts, I found more colored pencils. So I've added to my collection, and hopefully I can add more to get more shades of different colors. And I know that won't ultimately help my drawing abilities, but it will help my enjoyment of drawing to have more color choices. So that was something I did on my brain stack since my last video. Okay, so now I'll go back to more conventional order and start with what I have finished reading. And one of those was A Rule Against Murder by Louise Penny. And I believe it's number 4 in the Chief Inspector Gamache series. And I started reading this series because of Janelle's recommendation, Janelle at Too Fond of Books. And her descriptions of the books really appealed to me, so I wanted to try it. And sadly, she died earlier this year, so I don't get to talk to her about my enjoyment of the books. But I do think of her every time I am reading or listening to these stories about Chief Inspector Gamache, and I did really like this one. I can't remember exactly where it was set. I think last time when I was reading it before I finished it, I thought that it might have been in British Columbia, but it was not in British. It wasn't. He and his wife were visiting a kind of resort, but it was not in British Columbia. My confusion came in because more than one character was from British Columbia, so that was the connection to British Columbia. And this was within driving distance of Montreal, apparently, this place where they were. And while they were there, it was mostly filled with family members that were there for a family reunion. And a couple that showed up for this family reunion, unbeknownst to Gamache and his wife, they knew this couple, but they didn't know that this family that they had been, at this resort with, they didn't know that that was the husband half of this couple, that it was his family. It was his family's reunion, and that's why they were there as well. And so anyway, so they got to see their friends and Clara and Peter, and they live in Three Pines, where the previous books had been set and where the previous homicides happened. And when I talked about this book before, there wasn't a homicide yet, but that did eventually happen, and the investigation begins. And Gamache, even though it's not, I guess his jurisdiction, because he's with the Sûreté, which must be a more, province-wide or maybe even nationwide entity. I'm not sure. I should have been looking these things up so I'd be more schooled on Canadian law enforcement hierarchy and things like that. But he was investigating as well, as locals, I guess. And so the best thing about this homicide, I guess, if there are any good things about homicide, but since this is a murder mystery, the best thing about it was discovering how the murder was done, because that was as big or bigger than the whodunit was. How was it done? And throughout the book, I'm just thinking, how on earth? And all the experts are saying, no, it couldn't have happened this way. No, this is impossible. And you're just going, well, then how did it? How is he so sure it's a murder if he doesn't even know how it was done? But he was certain. And sure enough, he was right. And eventually we find out how it was done, which was, I found, super interesting. So, you learn so many things sometimes from these mystery books. And so I really enjoyed this one a lot. And I still enjoy the characters. I'm glad we got to, because we've seen Clara and Peter. Well, those of us who've read the books, I've seen Clara and Peter throughout the series so far, and so each time you get to know them more, you get more of, you learn more about them, their backgrounds, their personalities, and things like that, and also with Gamache, in this one, you find out more about his family and his background. And I found that very, intriguing as well. And so it was great. I loved it. And so I'm looking forward to continuing that series. And that was it. And so the other book I finished since last time was The Neverending Story by Michael Ende, or Ende. And I loved this book as well. It was, it's just something is always happening, and you just never know what's going to come next, and that's what I really liked about it. And also, there's a lot of, it's kind of, like character studies in a way of different people and how different circumstances affect them and their choices. And I really liked how they've got the font in different colors depending on what's happening. And I found that really, let me try and find one that's got both colors. Here we are. So I kind of, I liked that. I thought that was fun. And it of course helped me keep track of what was going on as well. And I did see the movie, The Neverending Story. And the reason why I decided to read this is because TC at Excessive Detail on his BookTube channel, he answered a question I had that what would I ask other booktubers was what their favorite book of all time is, and his favorite childhood book was this one. And so we kind of went back and forth about it, and I had seen the movie when the movie came out, but he said that's only about half of the book, which is true. There's so much more here than what I remember from the movie, and I didn't remember all that much from the movie anyway, so it was kind of all brand new to me, and which made it super enjoyable. And I just loved all the different kinds of creatures and people and characters that you meet along the way. It's very much like a quest fantasy type book, and seeing the main characters learn lessons, and I just and just that crossover between the real world and Fantastica, the other setting in the book. I loved it, and I'm so glad I finished it before it was due back at the library. So that's that one. So those are the two books I've finished since last time, and so as soon as I finished Neverending Story, this is also due back at the library the same day as the Neverending Story, is The Hive Queen, which I believe is number 12 in the Wings of Fire series. Let me double check that. And I have read all the books, plus the two, I can't remember what they're called, Legends, the two Legends books. I've read those. Yes, so The Hive Queen is number 12. And I love this series. This is, I think, kind of a middle schoolish kind of age range book. I love the drawings. Here's the map of the continent involved in this book, and then you get a guide to the dragons of that continent, and I love these. And so you learn about silk wings, for example. So you see, anyway, so these are mainly revolving, so far I've made it into chapter 1, and so far it's about adolescents, and some of these adolescents are from Huria, a different continent full of dragons. And so this is more about how, like the previous book in the series, is where you kind of get to know, is it called Pantala? Yeah. And that continent, and the dragons on that continent, and now the dragons from both continents, there are adolescents that are interacting with each other, have discovered each other, and the other continent to their own, the one that's not their own. And so it's really fun. These books have, my main excitement about these books is that they have everything. They have humor, romance. I love the humor. Romance, adventure, horror, just thriller. I mean, it is just full of all kinds of great storytelling, and the dragons are very human-like in their personalities and their dialogues with each other, and very adolescent. And I find it quite cute and amusing sometimes, scary sometimes, but you always have somebody to root for, and so I'm sure I will enjoy this one as much as the 11 previous ones. Well, 13 previous ones if you count the side ones called Legends. So I'm enjoying that read so far, and hopefully I can get it done before it has to go back to the library. And so my TBR right now, I'm trying to keep it, I mean, of course, it's stacks and stacks in real life, but I'm trying to keep my immediate ones down to library books, to get all the library books back to the library, so I'm not so overextended there. And but this is one that I found when I was searching for something else, and I was like, it was when I finished A Rule Against Murder, and I thought, I have a Louise Penny book somewhere, and I went looking for it, and lo and behold, and how fortuitous, it is the next two books in the series, 2 novels in one. So after A Rule Against Murder is The Brutal Telling, and then the next one after that is Bury Your Dead. So I have the next 2 books in my possession, so I will, I can do these, I can read these at my own speed, and so I will not be starting this right away, but I can rest assured that I have it. So I was very happy that I found that, and I don't have to depend on the library for it. But I got at my last trip to the library, and I loved walking up to the desk and saying this, that Promise of Blood is waiting for me. I received an email that Promise of Blood was waiting for me. So this is by Brian McClellan. This is a recommendation from TC at Excessive Detail at his BookTube channel, and also at Tammy's channel called The Protagonist's Pub. And they both enjoyed this book and the series, and so their descriptions of it were enough for me to want to read it, and I found out the library has it, so I put a hold on it, and it came through, and so I get to start reading this as soon as I finish The Hive Queen. But I love the cover art on this, and it is flintlock fantasy is this subgenre, which I have never tried before, so I am really excited about it. It's very thick. So yeah, I don't, and because I had to put a hold on it, I'm afraid I won't be able to renew it, and I'll have to try to get it done before it's due back. So I may be reading just one book during this time, and it'll be this one, and try to get it done. If not, and I have to turn it in too soon, I'll have to put it on hold again, I guess. But anyway, looking forward to this one. And while I was there, my handcrafters group meets at the library, and so while I was there, one of the ladies in my group was talking about a book she had just finished that her son had sent her, and she was talking about it, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. She said, yeah, Robin just left with it. I just loaned it to Robin. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll check, when we're done here, before I leave the library, I'll go check the shelves for it. and I got a couple things. I got something wrong about it. I thought it was a historical novel when she was describing it. So I went to the fiction section. I could not find this author at all. Come to find out, it's nonfiction. It is a history book. So, and so then, so this was like the day of fortune for me, because I looked it up in the car, on the computer terminal, and I didn't want to put my own card information in there to do the hold. So I went to the desk and I asked if she could put a hold on it for me. And she said, well, do you want large print? And I said, well, I'm trying to read regular print as long as I can. And she said, well, if you want, if you're okay with large print, I can go in the back and check for it, and I knew from looking it up that it said it was on the Bookmobile. And she said, because we have all the Bookmobile books here, and I can go back and check. And I said, oh, sure, I'll take large print. So she went back and checked, and she found it. And so I have the large print edition of The Wager by David Grann. And this is when I found out, it's got the Dewey Decimal number, and that it's nonfiction. It's actually the story, it's a history book. And it is about the Wager, this ship that set sail from England in 1740, and all of the misfortunes that happened over the next couple of years, I believe. And I didn't want to learn too much about it before I read it, but her descriptions when she was talking about it reminded me so much of the Mutiny on the Bounty trilogy that was written in the 1930s, and all the mystery surrounding that whole venture. And so I'm hoping it'll be as exciting as that. The ship in this cover art even looks like the depictions of the Bounty, even though the Bounty is probably 50 years later. But it looks similar, and so the cover art got me right away. So I'm looking forward to this after Promise of Blood. They're due on the same day. I don't know if I can get them both read by then, but and I would have had to put a hold on the regular if I didn't luck out getting the large print from the Bookmobile supply. I would have had to wait for this book, and I may still. So we'll see how that lines up. If I can get that read, or have to put it on hold. So that's those are my immediate ones that I'm looking forward to, and they're speaking of TC at Excessive Detail. He's doing a read along of 1984. And in my looking through, trying to find things, when I came across the Louise Penny book, I also came across my nice edition of 1984, which I have read a couple times. Not this particular book. I've listened to it once, and I've read it in a different edition. But I have since acquired this edition, and so if I can, so at least I own this one, and TC is doing his read-along videos, so I could jump in or go back at any time and still, benefit from those whenever I get around to reading this. But at least it's in the stack, it's in the TBR stack, as a very strong possibility, because I'd like to read 1984 again. So it's going to go with the Louise Penny book. All right, and so now I'll go to the rest of what I did on the brain stack, on my brain stack pile, which are the things that are kind of bookish, but at least exercise my brain. So here's the barely discernible progress on my jigsaw from it's called Just Jigsaw's app. And I've filled in some more of the nose, a little bit more around the eyes, and a little bit more in this black area with the whiskers at the bottom. So it's getting harder and harder, I'll tell you that much. But I do enjoy it, and I especially love the satisfying clicking sound when a piece fits where I put it. So that's my jigsaw. And then I got next one I did was my supposed to be a page a day. For me, it's a page at a time, because I started this on January 1st, 2022. Switch on Your Brain Every Day by Dr. Caroline Leaf. And I'm only on day I just did day 308. And these start with a Bible verse at the top and then a brainy tip, because she's a neuroscientist, I believe. And then she talks about how our brains operate in regard to this. So the verse was Romans 8:1. Therefore, there is no condemnation for those in the Messiah Jesus. It says there's more to the verse than that. That's only like the first half of the verse. I wrote it down. Let's see if I can grab it real quick. And so. Where did I put that? Oh, okay. So from the Scriptures version, it's there is then now no condemnation to those who are in Messiah Yeshua, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. So that's the complete verse. And the brainy tip is, uncontrolled guilt is toxic to the brain and body. And then she goes on to explain how that is, and this is, I believe that's true. She's, so we have to deal, if we feel guilt, acknowledge it, but move on, essentially, is what it is. And in order to do that, we have to observe and change the way we think on a daily basis. We've got to pay attention to our thoughts so we can eradicate those toxic thoughts. So I always enjoy doing these. I should do them more often, because it's always, I always benefit from it, and I always like it. So then next I did what I call the mom book, which I am doing for my children. It is it's basically prompts that you fill in and tell stories about your life. So the one I did this last time was, do you remember your favorite teachers and why did you like them? And this is kind of a sad story, but my second grade teacher was Miss Marshall, and she was always very nice to me, very kind, and I was always going to the nurse. I was quite frequently going to the nurse's office for stomach aches, and she sat me down one time, during recess or something, to talk to me and ask me about that. And I don't know why I felt free to open up and talk to her, that I was just so worried about my parents, and they were since they had divorced when I was 4, they've been in court ever since, in custody battles. And so it was on an ongoing basis. There was a lot of strife, and this manifested, in my body with these stomach aches. And so I opened up to her about that and why I was so worried, and I was worried that something bad was going to happen to one or both of my parents. There was a lot of conflict going on, and so she must have called my dad, who had custody of us at the time, and he took me to the pediatrician about these stomach aches. And I got put on ulcer medication at 7 years old. So but it did help with stomach aches. So that, that was a hard, difficult time in my life where, my teacher was there for me. Sorry. And it shows how people can touch your life in very important ways, no matter what age you are. And so Miss Marshall was a wonderful teacher and a wonderful person. The other teacher I talked about in this part was Mrs. Clements, and she was my, I did 5th and 6th grade in 1 year due to skipping, and in those days we had half grades, so you were B4, A4, B5, A5 in the semesters like that. So I started off B5 and I ended that school year as A6, and then the following year went to junior high school. And Mrs. Clements was the 5th and 6th grade teacher for the magnet school. So the entire school district of the city of Los Angeles, all of us in the, it was called the MGM program, Mentally Gifted Minors. And so everybody in the Los Angeles school district went to this one class. There were 16 of us in the class in 5th and 6th grade. And so, everybody but me, I think, was bussed in from different parts of, and this may have been just one region of the Los Angeles City School District. But I'm pretty sure it was the only one. But anyway, so I was in class, and anyway, we were learning college math, college level, high school and college level mathematics through Mrs. Clements. She was great. She taught us anything we wanted to learn. We had great freedom and great responsibility in that class, and it was so much fun, and she made everything so fun, and I've had a love for mathematics ever since, especially geometry, and like I said, puzzles. I love puzzles, and we did a lot of those and learned how to think in different dimensions and things like this. So she was a real gift to me, and that whole class, we all bonded a lot, and because we were kind of the weird ones in that school, because nobody else, they always just called us the brains, and they wouldn't play with us at recess and things like that. So I was remembering all those kind of things and wrote those down in this book for my children so they could remember some of my schooling, and their children and children's children can learn about those kind of things. And so that was it for the brain stack for this interim period. And so in the meantime, also when I was there for my handcrafters group, and I was waiting for my daughter to pick me up, and I went back up to the desk. So I had already checked out Promise of Blood before going to my handcrafters group. Then after my handcrafters group was over, I went back and found The Wager and checked that out, and then I'm still waiting, and so then I went looking at, of all things, DVDs, because I haven't watched TV and movies in years. YouTube is my video entertainment, so it's been a long time, but I saw a woman next to me checking out, a couple of big stacks of DVDs, because apparently you can check out 14 at a time now at the library. And I didn't need that many, but I figured she was going to have a binge watching weekend or something, and I thought, well, I'd like to watch something. It's Friday night, maybe, coming up. And the first thing that caught my eye when I went over to the shelves where the DVDs were was something I was wanting to read, but they're always checked out, and I'm kind of leery of putting holds on things, more than one hold at a time, because they tend to come through all at once, and then all of a sudden I got 3 or 4 books to read and that are all due at the same time. So instead, I saw this and grabbed it. And so it is The Last Kingdom. And so I got season 1 and season 2 in case I finished season 1 too quickly. And so this is books adjacent content. And I wanted to read Cornwell's series, and I still do. But in the meantime, I have finished season 1. I've finished the first 2 episodes of season 2. Next time when I turn these back in, I'm just going to get 1 season. I'll get season 3 if it's on the shelf, or I'll request it. But I am thoroughly enjoying these. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though. While I'm enjoying them, and I'm enjoying the historical settings and the culture of the 800s, and just learning, all that, and just it's very immersive in the feeling like you're there, kind of. Or maybe it's just mostly that way for me because I have not watched, cinematic things in so long. But I'm just, at the same time, it's very sad. It's very depressing of how long, thinking that this is, what is that, 1,300 years ago? And we're still the same way, just violent, brutal, and it's like, is there no hope for mankind? Are we ever going to get better and not do these things to each other? It's kind of an existential exercise in a way for me, of thinking about that we haven't really advanced from these days. And so while I enjoy all the cinematography of it, the acting is great. It's very well done, I think. At the same time, every time I watch, it leaves me with just this kind of dismay and, not really total nihilism or anything, but just, oh gosh, we have to try harder. We got to get better. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But I'm going to try and watch them all that they have at the library anyway. And we'll see how I do. Lastly, I don't have enough books, apparently, just like all of you. We never have enough books. Second Sale was having a sale, so buy 3, get 1 free. So I partook in that. I got this time I got mostly regular books and a few craft books. So I'm just going to show the regular books I got. Now, the one that's probably the most relevant to this video is, I used to have this book. I don't know where it is, but I got it again. Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. I'm hoping this will help me with my drawing endeavors and help me to be a better sketch artist or whatever. And but I did use it with my children back when I was homeschooling when my children were young. And but I never dove into it all that much by myself. And so this time I can just, focus on, but it has exercises and things in here. And so anyway, I'm going to try to devote some time. I'll put it on the brain stack and see if I can, I'll put it in the brain stack rotation and try to do a little bit each time its turn comes, it rises to the top of the stack. So I'm happy with that purchase. Then I decided to get books that I can't get at the library. I've already looked for them at the library, and I don't know if Amazon has them, but I didn't want to pay a lot for them because I've already read them, most of them, and but I remember loving them back in the 1990s. And one of the authors is Tamar Myers, and this is the first one in the Pennsylvania Dutch series, which is the main character has a bed and breakfast, I believe. And I remember they did not have the number 2 book in the series at the time, so I did not get any more of this series because I figured I should try reading the first book again, see if I love it as much 30 years later as I did back then. Maybe it's only 25 years later, but it's been a long time, so hopefully I've forgotten enough of it that it'll still be just as entertaining. But I thought it was hilarious. I thought this series was hilarious. And I think the main character is Mennonite, but she has Amish relatives, and there's a lot of, it's in an Amish setting, and anyway, just too many crooks spoil the broth. So I'm going to give this one a try. I've got the number 2 book, I can't remember what it's called, on my wish list at second sale. So we'll see if they get a copy in and I can get, if I love this one as much as I remember loving it, maybe I can get the number 2 book. So in the meantime, since I couldn't get the number 2 book, I got the first book in another series of hers, which is the Den of Antiquity series. And I had this book too back in the 1990s. I don't think I ever started this series because I wanted to finish the Pennsylvania Dutch series. So I haven't even started this series. So this will be brand new to me. And so again, it did not have the number 2 book in the series, and I figured, well, I'll try it first and see. And so I checked back later, another day, and found out that the buy 3 get 1 free was still going. So I looked for another one of the authors that I enjoyed back then, and that is Mary Daheim, and this is the first one in her bed and breakfast mystery series called Just Desserts. This is another one that I thought was very funny, or at least I don't know if it was as funny as Tamar Myers' bed and breakfast series, but I do remember chuckling a lot. So so we'll see, and sadly Mary Daheim died I think it was last year. She died recently, and so there won't be any more. And so in this case, I was able to get book number 1, book number 2, which is Fowl Prey. And these are all of these are cozy mysteries, by the way. And I think the third one is Holy Terrors, which the library does have. So I did not buy that one. And then there's number 4, which is Dune to Death. And number 5 is Bantam of the Opera. So that covers, so I have these 4 plus the one at the library. So that's the first 5 books in the series that I can read one after the other. So again, we'll see if I like them as much as I did back then. So that's it for this BookTube, and hopefully you're reading a great book and enjoying yourself. I know it's Victober. I'm kind of Victorian overdosed, I guess, or something. But Victorian literature is not appealing to me at this time, although it usually does. But I am not going to, I don't think I'll be reading any Victorian literature during this month. If I do, it'll be something that I haven't finished that I come across. But I'm thinking I'm so packed with library books, I won't be able to get to even the books I've talked about here that I own until I get those library books finished. So that's my challenge for this month, is finish the library stack, and then have only one book, one DVD checked out from the library. That's my goal at a time. Since I go there once a week, that should be enough. I don't need to have a big stack of library books. So we'll see how it goes. All right, so thank you for watching, and enjoy your reading time.